Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast, episode 25. This is a podcast all about midlife and the struggles, help podcast, self-help. Where we'll lay on our couch and deeply, no, it's not about any of that, but it is about flying and airplane things in midlife. And we're on the 25th episode, and that includes taking a month off. So that's pretty impressive. So we've passed the year mark officially, which is pretty cool.
This is why we're bringing the energy, right? Because we're so in the rhythm of doing this. Now it has been a month off, but for good reason, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, for very good reason. My name is Chris Moran. I have a YouTube channel that if you're watching us tonight as we record this live, it's called The Midlife Pilot. And my co-host is Brian Siskind, also has a YouTube channel at youtube.com/Brian Siskind. And yeah, that's who we are. So what is happening? I feel like I haven't seen you in
a week and a half.
A couple weeks, week and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing great. I don't have any kind of, misgivings or, retroactive guilt or shame about anything. I think we were all very responsible. No, it was very good, man. It was, I think everybody left with a good vibe, and that was really all I could hope for. It's like when you host anything, all you want is for everybody else to have a good time. And if you have a good time too, that's great. But ultimately, I mean, you know what all this is about. When you hosted your fly-in, it was a lot of work, more work than this one was. But you just want people to have a good time, and so I just felt I was riding high on just the fact that I could tell that everybody genuinely had a good time, and it was worth the effort to come out here and enjoy Nashville.
Yes, very much. It was an excellent time. And so, for those checking out the audio podcast, Brian hosted a fly-in called the Nobody Cares Fly-in in late October down in and around greater Nashville. And a group of about, 6 of us got together and had a pretty good time, flew to some really cool airports. We're going to get into kind of some of the things that we saw and did. And it was really cool to do it with a group of other pilots in the same kind of, in the same place. Like so many of our topics are about, right? The common theme is kind of our stage of life and just kind of where we are in our flying journey. So it was a really good time. 5 planes, 9 people, said Ted in the chat room. Yeah, Ted was there. We had 9 people, including our camera crew that followed us around. And I guess that's part 2 of the discussion. We can talk a little bit about the making the content that's going to come from it. And I know you, Brian, you have I think yours is public already. You posted a video about the experience a couple days ago on your channel. And then I'll have one, part 1. It's available for patrons now, but it'll be available on Friday morning at 10 o'clock Eastern. My first of 3 that I'm making from that weekend. So, and a lot of the other guys who were there have also been, publishing some content of it as well. So there is no shortage of documentation of the event out there if you can find it. We could probably share some links even if we wanted to in the description here.
Yeah. Well, so, I think that maybe where we can start is where, how it all starts, right? Somebody has to just kind of get the idea rolling. I guess we just kind of knew that a lot of the people in this, we have a lot of sort of shared patrons, and we kind of have a broader group that maybe eventually will get sort of consolidated in some rational way. But right now we've kind of got Discord over here and just, and we're kind of all over the place, but still codified and kind of together. And I think it was pretty apparent to all of us that we had to figure out a way to get together because we had such a great time in the spring at your fly-in. And, how do we keep that going and grow it a little bit, and it's a weird thing because you don't want to necessarily just open it up to John Q
right.
Public.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it gets unmanageable quick. I mean, that can get into now you're talking about just pandemonium.
Yeah, and just kind of weird liabilities and who knows what's going to happen. And, so it's sort of, as people have been sort of growing in our kind of clan. It's been cool to see people stepping up and wanting to do more things. So I just kind of put it out there. I thought, well, most of the people involved own airplanes. So there's a certain amount of, we'll get into this, but usually there's an amount of certainty that comes with owning a plane that you can get you're going to go.
I'll get that. I'll go ahead and get that clip ready.
So, and I thought, well, since I rent, it's like, you never know what's going to be available or what's going to be working or, all that. It's a little bit more challenging maybe for me to kind of get somewhere in that respect. But what I found out is that, hey, guess what? You guys that own airplanes, it's not just a big bed of roses and a bunch of fun. Sometimes stuff goes wrong. But anyway, that was the logic of just sort of, because Nashville is also quite central. We're a pretty distributed group. We've got West Coast, East Coast, and some others in between. So Nashville seemed like a pretty reasonably central kind of place for people to get to. So that's why we did it here, and we just kind of threw up a weekend. And then sure enough, people showed up, and I did have a loose agenda, a hopeful agenda, an aspirational agenda, and that was to just. I mean, there's a million things, you want to do, but you have to kind of trim it down to, okay, how are we going to coordinate a group of people with a bunch of planes to do different things and where people are going to get something out of it equally and it not be a challenge for some and a risk for others or God knows whatever. So kind of came up with a nice middle of the road sort of solution to that. And basically it really, centered around the joys of flying in the Nashville airspace. Mm-hmm. And we spent some time. So we went to Tullahoma, which is Tango Hotel Alpha, and it's about an hour southeast of here, and pretty storied place. They have the Beechcraft Museum there and all that. So we were able to go down and see that. So we can kind of maybe break that down a little bit before we get into all the other pieces. But that ended up being kind of like the main kind of attraction or the sort of treat for the whole thing. And boy, did that work out.
Oh my. Yeah. I mean, it was, we got to kind of pair up with each other and take a few planes down there and fly. But what we, the things that you had planned, Brian, were incredible. I mean, just the beach museum was cool. And, the stuff that we had planned, but it was really, for me, it was the unplanned, you couldn't have even expected. So after we kind of all arrived there and gathered on the ramp, went in the FBO and whatever, and we're walking over to go to the Beechcraft Museum, and we're walking down the ramp like, man, there is this DC-3 just like sitting on the ramp. And a couple guys were out working on it, and like super nice guys. I guess it's been parked there. How long did they say, Brian? It's been sitting there for, I don't know,
15, 20 years 10, or something.
Yeah, 15 years, some ridiculous amount of time. They've been slowly, just working on this airplane. And somebody asked, well, hey, can we take a look? And they said, yeah, go in. I don't care. Do whatever you want. So like we piled in and took tons of media and pictures and just explored the inside of this DC-3 and looked all around the outside of it. And then our walking back, later that afternoon, they're starting the engines up. Like Ted, who was with us, got to go over and help him like hand pull the prop through on one of the engines, and they're firing this thing up on the ramp. And meanwhile, you look just over the DC-3 and on the crossing runway from where we took off and landed, there's an Osprey just doing 500-foot AGL patterns like over and over and over on that runway. It's going on simultaneous parachute jumpers, people coming out of the, like on the airport at this untowered field, where we've got 5 airplanes there. And like, it's just, it was incredible. Just the activity and the amount of unplanned cool things we got to see at Tullahoma. That's a neat little airport.
Yeah. I mean, obviously air shows are great and all that kind of thing, but there's just something about being in the natural habitat of an interesting, busy place like that. And just kind of having it all kind of happen around you, and you don't really know what's going to happen next. It was a lot in one spot. And Yeah, that my favorite thing about Tullahoma is that they're one of the airports that has a loudspeaker where you can just hear all the CTAF out blasted over the whole ramp area. It really keeps you on your radio game when you're coming into Tullahoma, because that you're basically like on a presidential bandstand, for the whole place. But no, it's a very cool spot. And there's it's frustrating because obviously if we have more time and weather, things like that, we could have seen and done a lot more that's even just right around there at other little spots. But considering the amount, we didn't have a ton of time, and we were, a little bit tight on the weather. The weather worked out great for that whole day. And, and the museum, it was just cool to see. It's funny how, none of us have any Beechcraft airplanes or anything like that, but, man, is that place a rarefied, cool, it's not just like some kind of ramshackle, like thrown together, sort of museum. This is an incredibly, well-funded and well-regarded museum. So to see what they have in there, it was just, it's always a treat. So, yeah, man, that was awesome. And you didn't have to worry about, flying an airplane. You got to, be a passenger. And so this is, you talked about in the intro, Chris, that this was not going to be a therapy session, but let's talk. I think it was, man, because you had to deal with deep control issues.
Well, yeah. And guys are talking about it in the chat too. Some of the folks who were there at the fly-in, Josh, who I flew down with from here in his SR-22. And Ted is in there also saying like that was, Ted said he thinks I had got the best experience out of the deal by not having a plane there. And I think he's right, because what I invariably got to do was, fly all the way down from up here, Pittsburgh in my area in that SR-22, and then fly with different people on all the legs of the trip while we were there. So I finally got to get in the Sage's 182 on a leg for that, which I had been dying to do since the Outer Banks fly-in, and that was incredible. And then I got to fly with you on the leg from Tullahoma to Springfield. That was so hard. Everybody got in my head all weekend about what it was called, Springfield, which was super cool. And so, yeah, I think I did get a good deal of it. And it did help me a little bit, honestly, with my I don't like not flying. You know what I mean? I don't like not necessarily being in control, but I kind of just wrote it off for this trip and said, I'm going to try to, film as much as I can and just not have to deal with the headaches of managing an airplane and being PIC all weekend. And it did kind of, I think, free me up to have kind of I didn't have to think about the plane and pre-flight and how much fuel is in it and what's, all of the things. I just kind of got to jump in with each other and go for a ride. So it was great. I had a great time.
And you got more filmmaking done, which, we get to have the benefit of over the next few episodes you put out. So all worth it.
Josh says in the chat, and he's also right. I knew he was going to give me a hard time about this. He said Chris was better in the plane than he was in the car. Yeah, so we had a rental car, and I do have a problem with I was definitely a back seat / front seat driver. And somehow Josh got stuck driving us all weekend too. It's like not only did he fly me from Pittsburgh all the way down there, but also was in control of the car as well. But I did have a hard time with that.
Well, it's good. It's like exposure therapy, right? Like you just want to keep it up, and eventually, maybe if we do this after a few years, you'll be at such a place of incredible indifference that there you go. Yeah, maybe that takes I don't know, alcohol or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, man. So, well, speaking of, we got to have some drinks and some food that night. I took you guys to a local place that is called Blue Moon Waterfront Grill. If you're in Nashville, you probably know about it, or you might not know about it. There's a lot of interesting history around that place, but anyway, it's sort of a waterfront kind of a place, which is not a lot of waterfront in Nashville, but it's waterfront, and it just had such a great time. And there was a lot of other people that were able to join us that night that are not that weren't able to take part in some of the flying pieces, but at least were able to take part in some of the social parts. And so that was, another huge benefit. You got to meet a couple of my sort of pilot friends and people like that. And we also had our filmmaker people out, for even those, our video guys were out even for the social stuff. And that was really important to me. I really wanted to make sure that we had some people embedded with us. And we'll talk more about that once we kind of get over the sort of what happened. But yeah, so that was great. And then the guys, had a great Airbnb. And then, Chris, your Airbnb was pretty good.
That was pretty solid.
And then the next day it was a different, there's always going to be the part of it that's a challenge. And so, we had some plans in hopes for Sunday that were not going to happen because everybody had to immediately be thinking about how am I going to get home because of weather. So, you had a pretty interesting ride going back. How'd that go?
Yeah, it was great. So we lost Michael on Saturday. Michael, who'd come from St. Simon.
He's still with us.
Well, yes. Let me rephrase that. He had to leave on Saturday to get back to St. Simon's because he was going to end up getting weathered in. And so he left on Saturday, and then we had to the rest of us were trying to leave on Sunday, and it was pretty dicey, really low ceilings, precipitation. I think when we left Tune, it was 1,000-foot overcast and raining. So I got to fly back with, Josh, of course, back here in his SR-22 in, IMC, for the bulk of that first getting out of Nashville. Now, once we got, out, it was nice the rest of the way, but that was a really fun departure. Getting out of there with just all the, you just know there's, you're on an instrument plan, so it's a little different. You're not worried about the same things wearing in the soup. Obviously, you can't look for other planes, but they're there. You're on a specific, heading and a specific climb altitudes on your way out, so they're watching out for it. But the towers are there because we saw them all, on our way in. So it's a whole different experience, and hearing just all the traffic, like it's a whole different experience when you can't see anything outside of the airplane. But it was super fun, and it was a really cool experience to get to do it the whole way back. The only mistake we made on our trip back was deciding, even though it was perfectly clear weather up here, to go ahead and we said, we'll just shoot an RNAV approach into Clarksburg, which ended up, because of just circumstances and traffic around the airport and inbound flights, probably added 20 minutes to our trip. Cause we got sent all the way out. Just all the way away. So we added some time to that getting into Clarksburg, but otherwise it was a really cool trip home. And then I know, so after we left, Sage and Ted were going to fly to Atlanta, and they got out. What time did they get out? It was significantly
several hours after you guys left. Yeah. 'Cause I went back to the airport, hung out with them for a while. They probably left around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, I want to say. So minimal, even daylight, I suppose, was coming, but they got out and did fine. We had a pretty cool hang in the pilot lounge there at John Tune while they were waiting for for the next weather to come out, with a Vision Jet pilot. That's the whole thing. It's like you just keep meeting all these just interesting characters, and they all have their own interesting stories. So it's sort of like especially once you're in that mode, it's just really nice to be able to immerse yourself, like sort of suspend the rest of your life for a minute and just be of aviation and all in it, right? Just at the airports, around other pilots, and just, you're not even thinking about other things. And it's just so nice to be able to be immersed in that. But anyway, so yeah, they got out a little bit after you, but all's well that ends well. Everybody
That's right.
got back safe, and, Ted took, whatever planes, trains, automobiles, and then some, and got back to Portland. And that was so cool. And shout out to Ted, for, coming flying commercial here, or to Atlanta, then flying with the Sage from Atlanta up here to then go check out an airplane. So yeah, on Friday, we had already done all ours. We'd all had already met, and our arrivals kind of stage was done. and we were starting to get kind of the Airbnb sorted out and all that. And we're out there and we were just checking it's like Ted is out in Smyrna, which is southeast of Nashville. We're in the sort of western part of Nashville. And we're just watching Ted on this sort of eternal checkout flight for the plane he's renting, a Skycatcher. And he finally, I guess, gets that done and then makes it just before dark. And, we brought him to the restaurant, and then he was in sync, and, he did it. But, kudos to Ted for, it's one thing to, hop in the airplane that, you own and just, cruise. Yeah. And this is I'm not saying Josh could do a major effort. He drove you around in a car and survived it.
That's right.
But I'm just saying, like, Ted, it means a lot to see somebody, and it was really kind of inspiring to see somebody come all that way, check out a plane they'd never flown before, and get it done, and then immediately turn around and come right over to where we were, all unfamiliar territory. And it's, let's be honest, it's a little bit busy around here. And did all that and made it. So pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I was impressed, but yeah. So what were your thoughts about the greater Nashville, airspace, Chris?
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely, it's just like controlled chaos. I was really surprised. I'm not a big fan of, we have some of them around here, obviously much less busy than Tune, Class Deltas without radar. I don't like them in general. I especially don't like them around Nashville. It's amazing to me how they do what they do, without radar. I was blown away by how many airplanes were in and out of Tune. And then not to mention just, right to the southeast of it is Nashville, and it's just like, of course, constant chaos. We also Sage and I had the pleasure of flying from Tune over to Smyrna Airport, which is just like around Nashville from where we were. And their radar was out when we were trying to get in there. So it was just complete and total chaos. Josh and I you'll see it in my video that's coming out Friday. Josh and I had Tower set us up pretty poorly
at
John Tune on the way in on Friday. Basically, there was another 172 in the pattern, and we were, just from how they sent us in, we're coming pretty much straight in, and we kept just looking, and like this, we never did see the airplane. We had them on ADS-B, and we knew where they were from position calls, but like that was not going to work out. It was just never going to, spacing was never going to work. And so Josh ended up asking in a pretty funny way, that we needed to do something different. And so we ended up doing a big right hand 360 to get in. That happens at airports, and like, especially ones without radar, where they're just relying on like making visual contact with these planes and just kind of knowing how the spacing is going to work. And it just didn't. But, no, I expected there to be a lot of commercial traffic at BNA, obviously. I was really impressed with the amount of general aviation traffic in that area. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was in a weird way, it was sort of satisfying for me to see everyone else reacting to the environment that I've been cultivated in, because it just sort of reinforced, hey, if you train here and this is what you're used to, then you're in a pretty good spot, as far as having dealt with a lot of those variables and, all that. So as much as it is sort of a pain, especially, I don't understand the whole no radar. I remember being so excited keep in mind that the tower at John Tune just opened for the first time last year in September.
Right.
So when I trained, I started in April of 21 and then did my check ride in September of 21. And so I spent all of my training up until the last few weeks of it when the tower opened. I spent all of that time with John Tune as a non-towered airport. And I wish that I could possibly express to you how completely insane it was to train there as a non-towered.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine what kind of insanity that is.
But you don't even realize, because you're just, if you're new to it, you just think, well, this is what it's like, better be on your toes, or whatever. So
yeah.
So no, but it was good, man. It was good. Yeah, look at you guys.
This is just a little clip of us. For those of you listening to this thing, we're just showing the audience. This is a little clip of and you can hear some of the radio calls. I'll turn it up for just a second so you can hear some of the craziness of the radio work just on the way into tune. Anyway, we're asking
a vector vendor.
We were asking for something different here. We had to do a big right hand 360 to get away from the crazy, and it was crazy. But all in all, I think they handled it. I mean, not our specific case, but I just think they handled the amount of traffic that they have for being a non-radar facility. Josh, I actually did not mean it to be right. That I was just scrubbing through and it happened to be at that spot. But
Josh is a very good, Josh, I appreciate how you are so tolerant of, because we give him the Cirrus ribbing, right? Like there's so many things that Josh is the most emotionally mature out of this entire group, I think, of all of us, because he's really had to take, even in my video when I'm greeting him for the first time in real life, and I'm like, did you guys have to turn on the air conditioning? Are you guys okay? Was anything uncomfortable about your flight out? Totally just, so I appreciate Josh more than anything. He's kind of like our kind of our handhold to reality. But yeah, man. So that, you guys got in and everything was cool and we had a good time and everything was cool and everybody got home and everything was cool. And now we're going to plan the next one. And it's going to be, I think, St. Simon's Island, with Michael and his home turf.
Yeah.
And I think, if anybody wants to know why the fly-in was called the Nobody Cares Fly-in, you can just go to my channel and I have a thing that explains that. But wherever that's the rule, right? Is like, if you host the fly-in, then you get to name it whatever crazy, whatever thing you want to name it. And then we will all be there and fully support it. But so to turn the corner a little bit, obviously one of the things that brought us together was the fact that we're both people that are creative and make a lot of, do a lot of video work and filmmaking and audio things and all this other stuff, all this other nerdery. And I think that one of the neat sort of progressions that we made between the first fly-in that we had in the spring and then this one, and what I really wanted to kind of bring to it was I wanted, because everybody in our sort of group on Discord and all that, there's a lot of blooming sort of curiosity and interest and about how to get started with video editing for editing flights or for, whatever. And so it's been really immensely satisfying to be helpful in any way we can. I know you've done a lot of this and I've done a lot of this. We're not, geniuses here, but we are definitely further down the road maybe than a lot of these folks who've just never even tried to edit video before. And so we've kind of got a little bit of we ended up kind of having a little bit of a creative conference in a way that I thought was really cool. So I made sure that I had a couple of guys here that were just, not tied to flying or anything else. And, they're both people that I'd flown with, or I'd flown them around before. So they were acclimated, to flying. But ultimately just throw some guys some cameras and just have them just get in planes and different things and just follow people around. And we did some interviews and, I think that that's been the most rewarding part of this, as much as the aviation thing is the centerpiece and obviously the basis for it. I can't tell you how satisfying it's been already to see, this kind of collection of footage that's centrally available and, to everyone, and then just see what people are doing with it already, much less what can be done with it in the near future and down the road. That is the most incredibly satisfying thing to me about the whole thing, because really it is about sort of making these memories and documenting these moments And so to have that done where it's not like, I come in with my stuff and I get all this really nice footage, and then other guy comes in and he's just got one GoPro and doesn't film anything else. I wanted people to have sort of equal access to all of the footage to do whatever you want to do with it. And there's so much of it that it's actually kind of an interesting, fun exercise in itself to just kind of go scrub through everything and discover what happens. Because Chris, you've talked about this before, how nice it is to have other people shoot. As much as it's nice to shoot ourselves because we, might have a certain style or way we want to do it, it's actually quite nice in a way to just sort of have this kind of chest of surprises to kind of get into and see what was happening.
I found so many surprises, and I haven't even touched it. Part one for me is just getting there and just getting to Nashville. I haven't even got into the meat of the time we spent together yet. But just finding the clips that I wanted to use at the end of my video for the teaser for the next episode, I was just like, oh my gosh, there is so much that I either didn't see because I was doing other things, or just the way people see it. And then Peter, who was running around with that just absolutely ridiculous fisheye lens,
yes.
Which just, it's to the point where I had to because I can't stand seeing any of the rigging. I had to crop in enough to get past but it's so much of that. And I thought I would never shoot that.
I specifically asked him to use that lens.
Yeah. See, I would never, it would not be something I would do, but I just saw so much of it. I thought this is so cool. It just brings a whole nother perspective. So yeah, I'm super stoked about that. Those guys did a great job. And, and your stuff was really good too. I was, it's really helpful to have other people who see things differently. And that was a great call. I'm so glad you did that.
Yeah. I think that also, I think maybe you can admit to this on some level, right? That one of the challenges, or how do I word this? Let's just say that one of the maybe opportunities and perhaps a lot of aviation content is to tell more stories as opposed to just documenting, right? But we all started by documenting, right? Here's my training flight or whatever. And that's great. There's a total use for that. Absolutely, completely valuable to have almost clinical footage of a lot of that. It's helped us all. But that being said, it seems like there's always this kind of creative term where you start to get a little bit better at filming the flights, and then you start to go to more interesting places, and then you're still a little bit maybe in the kind of training documentary mode, and you want to sort of bridge that gap. And so I think that what's happened here is we've kind of come up with a little bit of a cool kind of recipe to make it so much easier for people to make that jump and to start looking more deeply at the stories and the humanity and whatever else that is kind of, what is so, that's actually the stuff that makes us want to do aviation things. Mm-hmm. So, it's not just steep turns or whatever. So anyway, I just think it's great to see people that maybe are just getting to know how to edit a little bit and to be able to plant the seeds of ideas about how to extract or find or identify stories that can surround the aviation pieces. I think that's going to yield over time a lot more, whether it's about this collective footage or footage that how they go about getting their footage in the future. So that's honestly, that's just probably the most exciting part for me, is seeing what other people have done and in any incremental way, right? And to do it fearlessly without worry, because nobody cares, and that's what this is all about, right? So,
right.
Just to see what Ted put together, where he pulled a section of an interview with one of the camera guys that we did, and pulled this whole sort of set of observations that guy had. Michael, shout out to Michael Malakote, but he was talking about how he noticed something that happened that he thought was interesting, and Ted was able to sort of go through the footage, find things to support that narrative, and put it together. Mm-hmm. Man, it was the most satisfying thing in the world to see. So shout out to Ted for doing that, and for everybody who's putting that stuff together. And Josh has really already before all this starting to really step up kind of what he's doing. And it's my favorite thing, man. It's like we're all progressing as pilots, but if we can see all of us also progressing as creatives or storytellers or whatever, it's not about being the most like cool whiz bang editor or whatever. It's just about doing it.
Yep. That's right. I'm okay. I'm going to stay on that thought for just one time. I just want to say one thing. You would have appreciated this, Brian, and I have not even told you this in private or in public yet.
Oh, great.
So when the first episode, you probably picked up on this because nobody cares. We're not talking about these things, right? We're not talking about the whiz bang, but I have to share something with you. The whole Nashville aura, the whole vibe of like the town. So the one thing I wanted to do, even as far down as the voiceover stuff that I did here for my video, the audio chain I used for it was all of my like went through a console and I used my 1176 clone and I had my, I went through all of the stuff just because I wanted it to match. And so you can hear the distortion actually a little bit of the 1176, because it's just got some old caps and stuff. So there's some impurities intentionally left in it. But like nobody will notice that, right? Except I will, because I'll remember it now every time I see it, and it's part of the whole thing.
That's awesome.
St. Simon's Island. I don't want to move to like the next one yet, but you made me think of something a minute ago. I'm already working a plan for how I want to do that fly-in, like myself personally. So I'm obviously not taking a plane. I mean, they're logistics for me to fly a plane from here to St. Simon's that is not mine, that's in the club that I have to. I mean, it would be logistically difficult. However, and nobody take my idea who's listening to this or watching this, because it's one of those things where I'm calling dibs. I need to talk to Michael Young. Because at his airport where the Cirrus he flies is, that same group has a 172. So what I want to do is try to get on that list, do all my paperwork ahead of time, and go down and do what Ted did. Basically, like I might fly to like Atlanta as well if I can hitch a ride with Ben or something. Like I might fly commercially to Atlanta, go with Ben. Then I'll check out in the 172 and have it to fly around the weekend while I'm down there.
Yeah.
There's also stuff at Ben's airport as well around Atlanta. So plan B would be like if several of us need airplanes, we could probably get some from Atlanta and take them over. It's not that long of a flight from Atlanta, but anyway, that's kind of in the weeds for this podcast discussion probably. But it's one of those like idea moments where I was thinking about it.
It's almost like Ted introduced the idea, right? It's really Ted's genius that you're calling dibs, but Ted's going to do the same thing.
That's true, but not a 172.
That's true. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about seeing. I didn't use any of this footage in the piece that I made, but we have footage of Ted hand propping a DC-3, and there's just something about seeing like the guy that's flying the Skycatcher, like the light sport, and he's out there just cranking up a DC-3, where. The light sport could fit in the back of the DC-3. I just loved that. That was such because he was ahead of us and we were all walking from the museum, and it was sort of like, is that
he had Ted hand cranking?
Is that Ted? Is he okay? Is this right? Yeah. Like, is he assisted here? Like, is he allowed to do that? Oh man, it was so great. I want to pull up. If anybody has any thoughts, questions, concerns, feedback. I want to remind people before we start the descent of this podcast that you should go and follow it on, or whatever, subscribe to it on iTunes and all the places. Leave some reviews. Do things that can help us out because we're really bad at self-promotion. And so you guys can help us with that maybe a little bit. Look at Ted. I mean, wow.
There's Ted piloting the Cessna 162 Skycatcher, which
now tell me how any other lens is going to be able to get a cockpit shot inside a Skycatcher and you can see everything.
Yes, no, that's very fair. That's very fair. We all did take a moment to sit in it because it was so shockingly different than any plane you've ever sat in, right? I mean, because it's like your feet are like up in the air almost, like they're almost up at your head. I mean, not really, that's an exaggeration, but they're like elevated. And
it's like a water slide.
Yes, it's like you're sitting in a water slide. It was so wild, but very cool. Why are we stacked like we are now? Anybody tell me? Oh, is that because the chat's up? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. It was very cool.
Yeah, and we had, and it works out nice too that I live so close to the airport, and the Airbnb was very close to the airport. So we kind of just stayed in my neighborhood. It would have been nice to be able to, do more Nashville things and all that, but you guys are always welcome, all together or in part to come through, and I'll be glad to give you any kind of tour. The only thing I don't do is I don't go downtown to Broadway because it's like asking a New Yorker to go to Times Square. It's an absolute nightmare. So anything else I'll do. But yeah, man, overall, a massive success, I think. And I'm so, really grateful to have, such a cool group of people to learn from, and Josh, got his instrument rating obviously just in time. And shout out to One Dull Geek who, almost made it, didn't quite make it, but for good reason and with good decision making, turned back and got his problem solved. And we will be together at the next one. I do have some t-shirts left over. Maybe we should come up with some fun way for people to get t-shirts that maybe didn't even come to the event because they're just t-shirts right at this point. Yeah. So I've got a few that I need to mail out to. I got to mail out to Michael and some other people, but I'll tell you what, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel and
smash that thumbs up button, turn on the bell,
decimate that button.
Yeah,
just like, I don't know, subscribe to my YouTube channel and just send me $100 and then I will send you. There
you go.
Just hit me up if you want a t-shirt and I'll probably send you one.
In all seriousness, though, do check out these YouTube channels like Brian's at youtube.com/Brian Siskin, and obviously mine at the Midlife Pilot. There's going to be some good content from this flying that are there. We'll also edit, once we have some other people's stuff up, we'll edit the video description of this podcast recording video with some links to some of our other attendees who have made content, so you guys can all kind of see what we're talking about with this like shared footage idea and who's doing what with what footage and how it all kind of came together. But it will be the most well-documented group of midlife pilots who got together to fly in Nashville probably ever that has been recorded, I would say. Right? Yeah, absolutely, man. And, could shout out to Chris Moran, the midlife pilot, because it all sort of, happened these are all like downstream echoes of you just putting out your training, warts and all, for other people, and because all of us thought, Chris, when we were watching you train, we just thought, man, if that guy can do it. Exactly. I mean, so did I. That's what I said to everybody too. If I can figure this out, you guys can do it. No, it's been a great, I think that I've enjoyed, all of the progression. I tell people, we talked about this a lot at the flying too. My favorite outcome of this whole thing still has been this community that we've kind of just naturally built up.
Yeah. So come on in.
It's there, and there's room for more. I mean, like we're definitely not an exclusive cliquey club here. We're these doors are wide open. So check everything out, get connected if you're not already in some ways. So really the best places to hit us up. I mean, the natural part kind of we form up outside of the YouTube environment, probably on our Patreons. It just kind of is the easiest place to talk in smaller groups and get people connected. And hopefully by the spring, there are no tentative dates for the spring. I mean, we don't have dates. I saw David Moscardelli asked earlier. I don't think we have dates per se, but it's going to be in the spring. And we'll probably, I don't know, we'll see how that plays out. That'll probably be a more closed group kind of discussion there too. But the more the merrier, though. I mean, it's I think St. Simon's, Nashville, Brian, I love Nashville. And
yeah, St. Simon's is going to be amazing. St. Simon's
is a little different. It's kind of a different feeling. Spouses may be more interested in that visit. It's going to be a little different of a thing. So.
Well, let's just say too, without getting too, public or personal, let's just say that the person that is going to be sort of our host and our concierge to St. Simon's is in the catering business. Mm-hmm. And so I think that if anything, no matter what the weather is, I have a feeling we'll eat very well. But yeah, so, and David Moscardelli also says it's about time that I ditched the high wing floater for the cool stylings of the Piper low wing. Well, guess what? I have, in terms of my rentals, I have been flying an Archer 2 pretty much exclusively for a while, although I am checked out in a new, to me, 172 that's got dual partial glass, dual G5s and autopilot and those types of things. And I do want to fly that one some, but I'll have to say, I'm just going to be totally square with people. I'm a good sort of case study, I think, for the low wing versus high wing argument. Also, it's a great way to get engagement in our chat, is just to create an argument. So let's just do that right now. No, I got to say that so far I like the low wing better, only because it's less squirrely on the ground and it's just easy. It's just easier. It's just, people talk about, well, you can't see. It's like, well, it's all trade-offs, man. Like when I'm turning base to final, I have to train I'm used to in a Cessna turning base to final and, having the wing up and taking a look out and making sure that final is really clear and real, because you can kind of look, but you can raise that wing and see some more. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you get in this thing and it's like, well, I forgot to look, or, you better look. So anyway, it's just the for everything that you can think of that's a plus, there's going to be an exactly sort of diametric trade-off on the other side, but I will say that in general it's easier.
There's lots of communication here. I want to clear up. One dog geek says, out of curiosity, has Michael actually agreed to the St. Simon's flying, or is this just something we're all pressuring him? No, he has agreed, but he is going to be very surprised when he listens to this episode of the podcast and hears how much of it was about him.
Let's put his phone number out here so other people can.
Yeah, we'll just, here's how you get a hold of him. Here's his, but yes, no, he is on board. He is on board. And, this is a thing that I think is really going to happen. So I'm super excited about that. Yeah.
I did get a message, from the Sage, says that he's in Florida with college buddies, but to send everyone his regards. I will choose to believe that we were his only friends, but if he says he has other friends, that's fine. Mm-hmm. No,
no, I think he has a lot of friends. He seems like the guy that who knows everybody, doesn't he? Like just like everybody sees him out and like, hey man, he knows everybody. I think.
So did his plane disappoint you at all?
No, my God, no! It was freaking awesome. It's so a 182 cool. with a 300 horsepower engine and a stall kit, and that thing was just it was. And the seats are like, what'd you call them? They're like from like a 1960s, like I don't know.
It's like Naugahyde couch sectional. Yeah.
No, it was legendary. No, I had a great time with Ben. It was wonderful.
Hey, look! We got our first.
Hold on. Things are happening. Wait. I got to make sure this is big for everybody to see.
No, because then we'll get. Oh no, this is
guys
great.
Are interested here. Don't read that out loud, though.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's an honor, though. We finally got botted.
Love it.
But yeah. So, any other final thoughts? Considerations, closing arguments?
No, just thank you for, it was really well done. You say you didn't do much for it, but there was a lot of thought that went into the kind of the layout of the weekend and how we were going to do things. And, you and, Katie were, super hosts to me. I really enjoyed just kind of hanging with you guys and, staying at your place. And, I got to be in the studio that you see here on all these things, and like behind him there is actually a couch that I actually did like at one point almost collapse into and just have a moment there in that couch. And so
we listened to some records. Yeah,
it listened to some records. It was no, it was very good for me. And I'm just really, really grateful to you for putting that all together. And it was a good time.
And Katie loved meeting everybody. And she learned something very important, as we all did, you know, in our own ways. But she learned something very important over the weekend, because I asked her how it was to fly with other people, because she flew with the Sage. She flew with Josh. I really wanted her to have the experience of, you know, other airplanes and other situations and all that, just to kind of keep building her exposure. And she explained to me something very poignant. She said, it made me realize that the only person I'm nervous about flying with is you.
That cracks me up. But I know where that comes from. It's that thing where, like, I knew you before you were a pilot, and so you can't be a pilot now. Like, that's a common thing. I get it. Yeah.
You know, so I guess next time you just, I didn't say anything like, well, then I guess I'll, you know, but my girlfriend's always known me as a pilot, you know, so
there you go.
No, so that was a pretty funny observation, but I can totally get it. Yeah, it's like, as far as I know, this guy's been flying this plane forever, you know, but it was cool. I really appreciated the other guys flying her around and being safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Well, it was good to hang out tonight, get back into the swing of things. We'll get back on our every 2 week routine for these. Like you mentioned earlier, we're terrible at self-promotion, but if you haven't, please do take a minute to subscribe on your favorite podcast player. If you're on iTunes, these reviews are super helpful to get the podcast out to other listeners. So if you can take a minute to write something or give us a review, and if you want to write a review, it can be funny or not, or serious or whatever you want, but all the reviews help too. So we greatly
and then your Patreon, Chris, is what?
Patreon.com/midlifepilot. And it's a cool place to be. My first episode of the flying video is available now if you just can't wait till Friday.
It's good. I mean, it's like 20 minutes long. I mean, or something, right? Like it's a very good video. I feel honored to have seen it. I do endlessly think it's hilarious that we are both patrons of each other's.
Yeah. So we just exchange. Yeah. It's good.
But mine is patreon.com/Siskind, SISKIND. And you can see all kinds of weird things there. But most importantly, you'll get access to our Discord, which is where a lot of the, like if you want to, see the behind the scenes daily ramblings of various pilots talking about pilot things and other things. We have fun in there, and that's where we're planning the next meetup. So that's the spot to be. So cool. Josh says Michael's scooter is legendary. Yes. So, but yeah, I really appreciate everybody, those who joined us, those who are new. All that, and let's just keep this thing going. We're all getting better at it as we go. We actually know how to do stuff a little bit now.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for hanging with us tonight in the chat. It's been a really good group as always in the chat room, and I guess we'll talk in 2 weeks.
Boom.